Thank you to ITC and all the student teachers that are with us today for this opportunity to speak on our efforts to understand Theosophy and make it a living reality. We hope that the words shared during the 4 days will inspire and strengthen your own efforts on the path. The paths are many and the goal is one. We may go on and on, remaining on the same level for myriads of lives. We may go lower, but if we are ever to make the ascent from soul to great soul, we must ourselves fulfill the conditions that will enable us to do so. From Robert Crosbie. To realize our essential true self is what the voice of the silence says is the path we must take. First, our descent into matter or form, then the transformation through the effort back to the true self. Evolution can never be just an outward expansion, but must include an inward growth as well. It must feel resistance on the journey back. There is no time unless there is a being who acts and then feels the reaction. Time is what is in between. Jakob Boehme expressed it, starting with the question as to why a painful and suffering life. He says, "Nothing without contrariety can become manifest to itself. For if it has nothing to resist it, it goes continually of itself outwards and returns not again into itself. If it return not again into itself and goes continually out, it will know nothing of its primal being. If the natural life had no contrariety and were without a limit, it would never inquire after the ground from which it rose, and hence the hidden self or God would remain unknown to the natural life. If there is to be only one will, there would be no divisibility. If that one will found not a contrary will, there would be no motion. It would have nothing to perceive." When we approach the idea of the Paramita path, it is good to keep in mind that for each being the path is different, that there is no final goal, as each goal including the final reveals other paths to follow. Each portal gives us a space to prepare, and each gate takes us to vistas of greater awareness or states of consciousness. And just as there are no two blades of grass the same, there are no two beings in the same state of awareness. This gives us pause to realize our journey is a long one, and as the Kwan Yin states, "Never shall I seek nor receive private individual salvation. Never will I enter into final peace alone, but forever and everywhere will I live and strive for the redemption of every creature throughout the world." For world, we can consider all that is temporary and in manifestation, and we can see how, like the horizon, self-knowledge will always be ahead of any embodiment. We see the wisdom to pay attention to karma, just as a captain on the waters must pay attention to the weather. Each nuance must be understood and used as a guide. The journey, the Paramitas show, is the journey back to the sacred seat. We have gone as far as we can into the karmic forms we have created, through the rounds, globes, races. To know these hierarchy of beings and the forms manifested, Proclo says, requires the power of love. With self-effort and examination, we journey back, transforming the matter of our being and all that lives. Through participation in and through example, the knowledge gained by our own effort and experience. The gods, powers of the hierarchies are beyond the human being who does not develop the virtues which allow him to participate knowingly in these hierarchies. Love is the power which draws man towards the divine and also irradiates the world. Love is thus an action, not a passion, whose end is justice, the condition in which unity, the fulfillment of all moral virtue, is possible. The higher self, Krishna, tells us that he established the whole universe with a portion of himself and remains separate. We too, as Krishna, have done the same, and as fragment 1 and 2 of the Voice of the Silence suggests, we are lost within the fields of the myriads of forms we have established. The third fragment indicates not a way out of those folds, but a way to transform them, so that we may act for and as the self of all. To work in harmony with humanity and nature, to serve in the effort of the ever-becoming from the changeless monad. To realize the self, we must see its reflection, just as a musician knows his potential through his musical instrument. The musician is not the music, nor the instrument, but the producer and the adjuster of it. In Theosophy, we use the term psychic and noetic. The psychic is the instrument that is transformed by the noetic or the ever-existing. Could we consider the paramitas as a reflection of the ever-existing noetic self? In the Bhagavad Gita, the paramitas for our humanity represent the forces of the noetic nature on one side, with the forces of the psychic nature on the other. Arjuna, the thinker and chooser, our lower manas, has devoted him or herself to the higher nature Krishna, and begins the transformation of the temporary forms to express that higher devotion. The Bhagavad Gita, the Voice of the Silence, Light on the Path, Dhammapada, the Upanishads, and other books speak to the psychology of the soul, the understanding of the lower self through the lens of the higher. In modern Western psychology, this position is ignored, and when we deny our true nature, we are at the mercy of the temporary forms. In the essence of our being, we are the paramitas. Rohit Mehta, in his book on yoga, the art of integration, indicates a careful inquiry into the fields of modern psychological research and study would convince anybody that modern psychology seems to be moving only on the periphery, unmindful of the very core of man's psychological being. All its efforts are concentrated on studying the behavior of man without probing the being of man. We are the creator, preserver, and destroyer of all forms and experience the results through the laws of cycles, karma, and rebirth. We are ever the being and not the behavior. While all these methods of psychology and help have their value, they would be enhanced by an understanding of the first pages of The Voice of the Silence, to discern the real and the unreal, to know that we are not our body, mind, feelings, or desires. We can, within the portals of the paramitas, transform and prepare them, use them, and then move beyond them. A little of their practice will bring us to be calmer, more reflective, and less reactive. We will respond to our intuition and find more understanding arise from what we are studying or reading. We stop judging others. With a less reactive nature, we can respond with right thought, feeling, and action. As we weave the paramitas within our sevenfold nature and its 49 fires, we are preparing to enter an ever greater path. In the portals of preparation, we catch glimpses of what lies beyond the gates. And with those glimpses, we continue to work to purify our mind and heart. As personalities, we are ever trying to reach a goal and thereby limit ourselves and get stuck in a state of consciousness or awareness, taking our identity from it. The paramitas give rise to an outward radiation while reflecting inwardly through self-examination. No matter what state of consciousness or enlightenment we may feel, we must remain on the open path. This is from The Secret Doctrine on page 200. We won't go into the details of this diagram, but it gives us a visual of the journey of every monad. This, the Secret Doctrine Proem, tells us is an evolution with no beginning or end. For the pilgrim soul, there is no permanent state of consciousness. Knowing this prevents us from falling into identity with any state, condition, or personality. Even nirvana is not permanent, and in the eternal cycles of manvantaras, it too has its beginning and end, as the eternal pilgrim picks up again the cycles of evolution. The adepts know how to direct their mental vision and to transfer their consciousness, physical and psychic, to other planes of being. They speak with authority on such matters when they say, "Lead the life necessary for the acquisition of such knowledge and powers, and wisdom will come to you naturally." The right expression of the paramitas, Mr. Wadia says, is necessary. We must make them a part of our being so that we become constitutionally incapable of a selfish feeling and will examine every thought and act in their light. We must do this joyfully and from a state of bliss. In other words, not as personalities, but through the personality from our real nature. Theosophy is a language of symbols, symbols of our own inner journey, awakening and becoming, a language that can only be understood if we realize all our diversity comes from unity and beyond, that God cannot be less than space. God is the center that is everywhere and circumference nowhere. Through our identity of separateness, we shrink our circumference, and through the paramitas, we make our circumference expand. Theosophy for each being is a quickening in the heart, reflected in a calm mind. The mind seeks out the language to express this feeling of unity with humanity and nature. The voice of the silence speaks of portals and gates in relation to the paramitas. Portals being maybe a place where we prepare to enter, and the gate being the becoming of the virtue and not just the practice of it. We will at times get glimpses, as was said, beyond the gate, a better understanding of the words or symbols, but we cannot sustain that understanding, so continue for a time in the portals of preparation. In these portals, it is important to not look for result, but to work with and have faith in karma and lean back on Krishna. The paramitas are given in words in a line like a ladder, vertical, but also horizontal. To move up, we must radiate outwardly in practice. So it is important not to see them as one after the other, but as a whole. The paramitas indicate the location of the self, that which is undisturbed by anything that may come to pass. Let us reflect on those virtues. Mr. Judge, in his article, Friends and Enemies in the Future, states, "Let the seeker know, once and for all, that the virtues cannot be discarded or ignored. They must be made a part of our life, and their philosophical basis must be understood." Dhyana, the feeling of charity, love immortal. It is not what we as personality think of as charity, but a feeling that arises from non-separateness, a recognition that being human is difficult. We do not judge others, but see the struggle of the soul within the illusion. Our words and help can reflect that understanding. Compassion is strengthened when we acknowledge the struggling pilgrim within the karmic condition. In this realm of effects and constant change, we become aware that we have no patience for the chaos around us. But if we are going to express compassion, we must cultivate discernment beyond the conditions and harmonize not only in the changing world of thought, word, and deed, but with the potential of every being. We learn to listen inwardly and outwardly. We become Shravakas, listeners. And from this point on, the voice of the silence says, we must prepare to travel on alone, to act as Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita, as seemeth best. We cultivate discernment through personal exertion for others, personal mercy and kindness, and personal interest and sympathy in the lives of others. That brings us to the key of harmony in word and act, the key that counterbalances the cause and effect and leaves no further room for karmic action. To do no harm, harmony is to be practiced. We must guard our speech and make it harmless. We perform actions deliberately with care. We choose our words carefully. Again, this takes us back to the first pages of the voice of the silence, to discern the real from the unreal. We harmonize with the cause of humanity and nature. We use these two virtues like a tuning fork to silence the disharmony of our lower nature, to become aware of its disharmonious noise. To silence the lunar form at will is only part of the effort of harmony. The other is to reflect non-separateness, to work with others as part of one whole without getting overwhelmed by the many sounds and voices, for harmony does not mean sameness. This reflects itself in keeping your word, of acting on good intentions. Universal brotherhood is more than a feeling, but it is reflected in thought and must become a deed. If we create a harmony between our thoughts and deeds, it balances karma. This is self-control, forbearance, and involves checking a hasty conclusion, decision, or action, to be deliberate, to remain calm and silent if needed, as is a musician in an orchestra who plays his or her part. This naturally leads to Kshanti, patience sweet that naught can ruffle. To have patience is to be non-expecting. To live in the world but not of it brings a state of accepting all that karma offers for ourselves and others. The first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita finds Arjuna and Krishna surveying the field of past karma, and the arrows are flying from both sides. Krishna advises Arjuna that there is no running away or looking for salvation, nor can we partake of the music of the spheres and the beautiful realms beyond the earth by ignoring the battle altogether. Such action leads us to darkness, and all who encourage and lead us in that direction are false teachers. Patience is to be content in our task of facing the karma of our past, even while striving to get above it. We cannot all at once live up to those high ideals. We can try for patience in all the tasks of our life, and it will grow in strength. This, in turn, will make concentration easier and meditation possible. It is how we live our day within the trial of these first three paramitas, charity, harmony, and patience, that brings about the life necessary for the acquisition of knowledge. Virya, indifference to pleasure and pain, illusion conquered, truth alone perceived. Virya is the paramita of balance between the first triad and the next triad. It is to be without attachment, to be indifferent to our pleasure and pain, to have no aversions, to be beyond the pairs of opposites, to withdraw our energy from anger, envy, greed, etc., and give up all our thoughts that feed them. Each of our thoughts attach themselves to elementals, and if repeated, these elementals become a force and an obstacle or an aid for all our thoughts reflected in the higher and lower energies. Through Virya, along with the first three, we transform the lower quaternary, the changeable part of our nature. It is the point of realizing that the giving up of our likes and dislikes make it possible to truly begin to act for and as the self of all. This moment has a quieting effect on our lower nature. In the practice of the first 4 paramitas, we catch glimpses of beyond the gates, but it requires the next paramita to sustain those glimpses. Until then, we remain in the portals to purify our natures, help others, study, cultivate discernment, and meditatively move beyond any form. Virya, the dauntless energy that fights its way to the supernal truth, out of the lies terrestrial. These glimpses of truth that are sustained by Virya, the lies terrestrial spoken of in the kamic mind, the mind of desire. We have lifetimes of karmic energy coming our way, and there is no stopping it. All thought and feeling energy must find its expression on the earth plane. So while we work not to replant those energies as future obstacles, we must have dauntless energy in that effort of transforming those old thought forms. That is not to say that this karmic past is all made up of obstacles. We have instilled good habits, which will be as friends, as aids to us. We must not take our identity from them, but use them as tools along the path. Dhyana, whose golden gate once opened, leads the Narjol toward the realm of Sat, eternal, and its ceaseless contemplation. In the attaining of the Dhyana gate, we use concentration and meditation in 2 ways. Defensively, so as not to allow the lower mind to soil the higher, while at the same time striving for greater understanding of truth, latent in the heart of every being. This requires constant awareness. No thought goes unexamined. Stopping action of feeling from the lower, while through the study and service becoming more universal. The next slide breaks this down for us, and it was prepared by a student in the UK. We can see here each of the paramitas has a 7-fold application and meaning, and we can work it out for ourselves. As an example of what we can consider this diagram of Dhyana, or contemplation, and all that it means. We cannot concentrate, contemplate, or meditate without filling our day with the first 4 paramitas. Did we reflect them at work, or at the grocery store, or in traffic? Did we, through the course of our day, live the life necessary? How we live the day is preparation for Dhyana. When we look at the diagram, we see that right posture, or asana, is our mental attitude. That nima, religious observance, is an internal position of the observer or watcher, and so on. Our breath or motion is of service. In this, we are told each being must work out for themselves, that we walk this path alone, for we are all in a different state of awareness. Prajña, the key to which makes of man a god, creating him a bodhisattva, son of the Dhyanis. Prajña is the capacity of perception. Through the gates of Camino Paramita Sutra, we can perceive all the hindrances resulting from past karma. From that action, an instrument with merit is realized. a measureless instrument of wisdom endowed with mindfulness. The secret doctrine states that Prajña is behind all manifestations we know as light, heat, sound, adhesion, etc. It is the spirit of electricity, the life of the universe. An awareness of the 7 principles and 7 conditions that never falls unconsciously into any of those states. Maybe we could say Prajña is the gate once crossed that one becomes a walker of the sky. The Dhyana gate is like an alabaster vase, white and transparent. Within there burns a steady golden fire, the flame of Prajña that radiates from Atma. He enters the waters of wisdom, diving deeper until he sees the Naga, the dragon lord of the lake. Naga teaches the mantram to the new Arhan, who comes back to earth to repeat it. Peace to all beings. Dorjesempa, the diamond soul, the unbreakable, indestructible nature of enlightenment, the power to cut through ignorance, and the union of compassion and wisdom. Thank you. I look forward to your comments and ideas.